I built a portfolio from 0 to 800,000 using a strategy where I was paid to live abroad. What I'm going to do in this video is walk you through my step-by-step process that I use to accelerate my portfolio and show you how you can build wealth faster and live your best life abroad at the same time. I've lived in over 10 different countries, and now I advise as a licensed financial planner. And if you clicked on this video, there's a good chance you're having trouble building wealth because of the rise in the cost of living, and you're wondering to yourself, what can I do to get ahead? I will show you the exact strategy that I used 10 years ago, step by step. So the basis of this strategy started when I was 24 years old. I left the United States Marine Corps, and I started thinking to myself, if I were to go in the workforce and get a normal job and invest in my 401k and IRA, I would have to wait until age 60 to enjoy the benefits of what I was doing. I lived in a high cost of living area in Miami, and I wasn't able to enjoy my life based on what I was making at the time after all the bills were paid. So I started to explore different strategies and different ways that we can build wealth. And I came across something very interesting. So in our life, it's very normal for immigrants from other countries to come to the United States, earn a higher wage, send that money back home, and at some point return back to their home country in a much better financial position. And I started to think to myself, why can't we as United States citizens do the same exact thing, except we go to a different country, build a better financial position for ourselves, and then come back to the United States in a much better financial situation? And so as I was searching around, what I found is what's called the 330 tax law. And what the 330 tax law states is that if you physically perform work outside of the United States for at least 330 days in a year, even if you're working for a US company, you do not owe the federal government any taxes up to $130,000. And if you were to max out this benefit, this would save you in a year anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. When I was building a portfolio starting from zero, this $20,000 to $30,000 made a world of a difference, and compounded over years and years and years could equate to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So let me walk through the first thing that I did. So the first step in our process is to do what I like to call monk mode. And you're going to do this for 1 year. Monk mode is when you get in a mental state where you're clearly focused on your goal. You remove the outside distractions, and for 1 year, you're going to save your money and your resources and use this 330 tax benefit. When you think about any hero story, there's always a period where the hero goes away, they kill off the old version of themselves, and they come back a renewed version. And Batman, he goes into the mountains, he trains with Ra's al Ghul, and then he comes back as a renewed person, as Batman, to fight crime. You need to leave and kill off the broke version of yourself and come back a renewed, wealthy version of yourself. And I would tell myself that if I can't do anything for just 1 year out of my life, then there was no way I could ever be successful at anything in life. And so after this year, step number 2 is I took that extra tax money from the 330 tax law and I bought a house. But I didn't just buy any house. At the time, I was living in a high cost of living state, and I looked at the map and I said, what is the most affordable places that I could buy a home? And right here, you have the United States cost of living index by state. So what I did is I looked up all the affordable cities that had a professional sports team. Reason being is professional sports teams are very strategic about where they place their sports franchises. There needs to be a certain amount of economic infrastructure there, and there needs to be a certain amount of growth in the city for a professional sports team to go there. And these are billion-dollar organizations that do a lot of research on where they put these sports teams. So using this live abroad strategy, what I did after I bought a house in an affordable state is I phoned a friend. When you phone a friend, what I told my friend was, hey, I have this house and I'm not going to be in it. I'm going to be overseas. And you can stay in this house at cost. I'm not even going to make any money off of you. I just want you to stay in the house and make sure that it's good. I'm into building win-win situations in business. You want a win-win situation where you benefit, but the person that's helping you out is also benefiting as well. The key is I didn't want to start off being a landlord living overseas because I had never done it before. And there takes a certain level of expertise and time to be a landlord if it's your first time. Step number 3, after I bought a house, is what I call the 10-20 rule. The 10-20 rule is I took 10% of all the money that I earned and I would invest it into the stock market. And if the stock market declined from its high by 10% or more, I would increase that amount by 20% until the stock market returned within the 10% band. Like many of you watching this video, I didn't know anything about investing in the stock market. I had never done it before. I had no idea. So the first thing I did is I picked up this book, A Random Walk Down Wall Street. This is the very first book I read while I was in monk mode for that year. And in A Random Walk Down Wall Street, the author breaks down target portfolios for your set age. The next question I asked myself is, okay, 70% stocks in my 20s. What stocks do I buy? And what I ended up finding was this website, etfdb.com. This is an ETF database. This website contains every ETF that's on the market. Now, what I will say is when I first started my portfolio, I had no idea what was going on, and that's fine. A little funny thing happens when you start investing your own money. You start to care a lot more when your money is on the line. Quick story, I remember downloading the Stash app where you could buy ETFs on your phone, and I would just buy random ETFs that I thought sounded good. Oh, technology, cool. Let me buy this right quick. And as I started reading more and more into the ETFs, I was able to shape the portfolio as I saw fit for my risk tolerance and what my goals were as I was reading more and more financial education. And A Random Walk Down Wall Street gives you the foundation to your pyramid to understanding the basics of stock market investing and how to build a portfolio on your own without any assistance. Step 4 in this process is I would reinvest all the money back into my house. Remember, during this entire period, I was receiving the 330 tax benefit every single year, 20 to 30 extra $1,000 in federal taxes. Remember, you're gonna pay these federal taxes no matter what. This is already money that you're earning that's going to the government. Now you're switching it back and getting the money back from your government while still living abroad at the same time and upgrading your quality of life. So what I would do when I would reinvest the money in my home is I would focus on the floors, the paint, the kitchen, and the bathroom. And I'll pull up a picture of what the home looked like when I purchased it. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy going on here. And I ended up turning it into this using the money that I was saving on taxes. And what you want to do when you own these homes is you want to look in your neighborhood and see who has the best home in my neighborhood and what does it look like in the inside? And how do I get my home to that status so that I can charge the most that I possibly can for rent in my home? Step number 5 in this process is I bought a second home. So rinse and repeat. So you have your first home, you updated it, you're investing in the stock market. Now I bought a second home to add to the portfolio as the tax money keeps rolling in from living abroad. Step number 6 is rinse and repeat. You update the home and you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Now understand that while you're going through this process, this is not a straight line process. You don't go from 0 to $1 million in a straight line. It actually looked like this. So my portfolio would go up and then something would happen in the market and then it'd go down and then it'd go up for a little while and then something would happen with the housing market and then it'd go up, back up again. And all along through the ups and downs, it looks like a line like this. And I'll share a few moments that I had. So I started this process in 2016. In 2018, December, end of the year, the market had a pullback and decline, and it made my account break even after 2 years. Following my rule, I doubled down and started investing 20%. Market came back. A little bit after that, COVID happened and took my account into the negative in 2020. I started in 2016. 4 years later in 2020, I'm in the negative. I kept doubling down. We know what happened with the market. It eventually came back. So being disciplined and following the process is important to this too. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to be disciplined enough to follow the process and go through with it. Now, there is no free lunch in this entire process. If you're living in a high cost of living state right now, being in the middle class working, you've effectively been locked out outside of building wealth in your retirement plans. So from the time until now, until you're 60, what do you do to accumulate wealth outside of those retirement plans? So any type of investment strategy involves trade-offs. There's pros and cons to get where you're trying to get. Let's talk through some of the cons first. Con number one is your life circumstance. Living overseas does require you to change your life circumstance. You might have to change your employment to be able to work remote. You might have to look for an employer that has overseas opportunities. What I will say is that if you want to find a way, there is a path there. I've lived it and the path is there. Con number two is you miss life events. Naturally, if you're overseas for 330 days out of the year, you're going to miss some holidays, you're going to miss some birthdays, you're going to miss some important events. And that's definitely a sacrifice that you have to pay to do this strategy and build a better future. What I will say for those living in the United States is, if you haven't built a portfolio or you're living a average middle class lifestyle, you're already missing life events because a lot of times your life is taken up by working multiple jobs or not having the amount of money that you need to truly enjoy those life events. Con number three is country hopping. So a lot of times when you go to different countries, you cannot stay there for the full 330 days unless you apply for a visa. Applying for a visa can require you to pay taxes in that country. So for that reason, you might have to do a situation where you stay in Panama for 90 to 180 days, then go to Costa Rica for 90, 100 days. This is exactly what I used to do. I used to go to Colombia for a certain amount of time, and then I would spend another amount of time out of the year working somewhere else to make all the dates add up, where I didn't have to go over my temporary visa to pay taxes in those countries. So let's talk about the pros of this. And in my opinion, the pros heavily outweigh any of the cons. Pro number one is life experience. You will have so much life experience living abroad. It's something new. You're out of your neighborhood. You have to adjust to different languages. It's going to make you much more well-rounded as a person and see the world through a completely different lens versus just staying in the United States and only seeing one aspect of life. Pro number two is it's a much faster path to wealth. I would not be where I am today if it was not for this one tax law and this one strategy. When you are starting out from zero, the ability to pay no federal taxes and then reinvest that money into assets can mean the world. And remember, investing is about time in the market. The longer you're in the market, the more it benefits you in the long run. So the earlier you can start pumping money into a portfolio, and if you can get these extra boosts by living abroad at the same time, this can create a much faster path to wealth. And remember, you don't have to live overseas your entire life. This can be a temporary situation. It was a temporary situation for me. Just like immigrants come to the United States, and a lot of times they stay for school, they work for a period of time, and then return back to their country when they're in a better financial position. Pro number three is your network. Using this strategy, you're going to meet other American citizens that are doing the exact same thing, other American citizens that have moved abroad. And chances are that if somebody is doing this strategy, they have something going on in their life that allows them to do this strategy. They either own a business or they either work a tech job, remote, something allows them to be there. And your network is going to expand tremendously versus staying in your same neighborhood in the United States with the same people that you grew up around. So I've broken down the step-by-step strategy that I used using the tax law. And there's two options after this. Option A is to continue down the same path, doing the same thing, getting the same results. Option B is to think creatively on how I can create a situation to accelerate my wealth, build a better future, and also open myself up to a bigger world that's out there outside of the United States system. So let me know in the comments below, have you ever lived in a different country? Have you thought about living in a different country? Is the cost of living in the United States holding you back from building a portfolio right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And now that you know my strategy that took me from 0 to 800,000, make sure you click the video that I'm going to link above. That's my financial literacy masterclass for middle-class professionals.